Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just here to get you guys set up and then I'm gonna bounce.
Hey,
Morning,
David.
Rachel.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Nice to meet you, Annie. How's the conference going?
So far, so good. I can't complain. I mean, did you guys get a chance to do the networking at all?
No, I'm actually on leave, so.
You're like, I'm here for your session, Ani.
Yes.
That's perfect. That's all I needed to hear. And I think you have one more. I'm waiting for her to come over. And once she does, I'm going to leave and it'll allow you guys to take over from there.
Hi,
Annie,
Tsunami.
how much time do we have again for the panel?
You have 40 minutes.
Okay. And you guys will give me a sort of a, you will kick us out when we're done? Okay, cool.
Yeah, someone's gonna come in and say, okay, guys, you have like 10 minutes left. And they're gonna track you. So one of the girls, you'll see it in the chat, like, okay, guys, you have less than 10 minutes left. So I'm waiting for Pauline to come over. Once she comes over, then that's it.
Cool.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming along.
Than's for having us.
So where are you? Are you in DC right now?
No. Who, me or Rachel?
Huh? No,
Rachel.
Rachel's in the UK, I know that. But
Yeah.
you're...
No, I'm in New York City.
Nice.
5 in the morning. Nice.
Oh.
Oh my God.
I've had 3 cups of coffee, so I'm what is it? I'm managing. That's
Does
the right
she
word.
ever sleep, you wonder? Does she ever sleep?
Yeah, we're missing Pauline, so I probably have to go log out and go get Pauline from backstage. So you guys have an amazing session. When she comes on, David, you're a moderator, so all you have to do is click the little button and add her into the session.
Wait, what button? What button?
He said, where are you going?
What do you mean? There's a button somewhere?
There's a button over there.
I see it.
Yeah, she's like backstage. Let me see if I could just go backstage without actually leaving you. So, because I don't see her.
Okay.
I'll tell the girls to tell Pauline, please go click on her session.
La 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 la. Hello, Tsunami. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. The sun is shining over here. It's a Friday. Well, not afternoon yet, but soon it will be.
Oh,
which is a good thing.
It's been raining over since maybe 6 a.m. I think.
Ay.
Cold morning.
Rachel, it's a staycation.
Yes, it's a staycation.
Yeah. I was supposed to go on leave for like a month and go to Iran for a wedding and go to South Africa for a wedding, and none of that happened. And so I decided I'm going to take holiday anyway, even if it's just here.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining.
Oh, of
wait,
course.
you can add Pauline. I have a button. There's a button.
There she is. Okay, I fixed it. She should be there.
Hey, Pauline.
All right, perfect.
Good morning.
All right, you guys have a wonderful session. You already have 13 people that are here, so enjoy your session.
Thanks, Annie.
There's no more buttons to push, right? We can just...
No more buttons to push. You could just talk to your heart's content, and everyone sends you 1,000 questions.
Cool.
Oh,
We start, or there's like something like a go ahead? Or we just start?
Just start.
Okay.
All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye,
Have a
Annie.
great session. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this panel on VC and angel investing. My name is David, and I'm joined here by this absolutely amazing panel with Rachel Crawford, who's calling in from London, UK. We have Tsunami Johnson calling in from a very rainy Lagos this morning. We have Pauline Kubel, who's based out of Zurich. I think that we want to start the conversation by having my panel members briefly introduce themselves. Tsunami, would you like to start?
Sure. I can start. So hello everybody. My name is Nami Johnson, and I am the CEO of GrowWest, which is pretty much a micro investing platform that gives women access to VC investments and opportunities. That's it.
Thank you. Pauline?
Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending where you're joining from. I have spent a lot of time actually working first in international development area, and then I shift into an area of entrepreneurship innovation. And as we speak, I just launched an initiative called She Equity that I will be sharing more about, when we speak later. And originally, I'm from Rwanda, and like everyone, I think in the audience, I consider myself a global citizen because I have lived in so many countries, and I carry different passports. So back to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. It's great to have you with us this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you're calling in from. Rachel?
Hey, everyone. Yeah, Pauline, I'm also a global citizen. So I work with Village Capital on our innovations team, strategic innovations team. Village Capital, we run an investment readiness program. We do ecosystem development, and we also have an affiliated fund. And the team that I work on experiments with different innovations in terms of how capital is allocated. So our first innovation was peer selection, and now we have a few other innovations in terms of financing that I think I'll share with you today.
Okay, very good. Thank you again, Rachel. So the ultimate question we would like to try and answer in this session is, how do we increase the amount of capital that is made available to promising entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs on the continent? Can you hear me fine, by the way? There's a bit of an echo on the line. I don't know if that's... Okay, good. But maybe to start sort of breaking down that question, Rachel, your organization, Village Capital, has done quite some research, trying to understand maybe what works and what doesn't work, trying to map the current landscape. Could you maybe share some of the findings from the research that Village Capital has done? And then maybe at a later stage, we can look at sort of solutions. But what does it look like today?
Yeah, sure, David. So the work that we've done, would you guys mind muting? I'm getting like a bit of background. Oh, thank you. So the work that we've done today is actually with the IFC and the Women's Entrepreneur Finance Initiative. So we took a sample of about 2,500 startups that had gone through about 80 different acceleration programs. So it's a global study, so I can't speak specifically about what this translates specifically to in Africa, but we think there will be very similar themes, and that's something we're building off of now. But essentially from our study, we found that as it relates to female-led businesses raising equity post an acceleration program, in comparison to men, so men will raise 2.6 times more equity if they've gone through an acceleration program, versus women, it was shown to have zero effect. So we are seeing that actually women that go through acceleration programs do not have any significant difference in their ability to raise equity financing, which is a little bit discouraging, I think, for most of us who believe that like acceleration can lead to better investment readiness, which will lead to more capital allocation into startups that might be overlooked by traditional systems of venture capital. But interestingly enough, what we found also in the study was that acceleration improves women's ability to access debt financing. And when we investigated this a bit further, we actually did a literature review, and one of the big ones that stood out was a Harvard study that looked at how women are pitching and perceived pitching by venture capitalists, and the questions that female-led businesses are asked versus male-led businesses. And female-led businesses are very often asked more about risk. So they're asked about, how are you going to mitigate risk? How are you going to like reduce losses? And male-led businesses are asked substantially more about reward. So when you take that into consideration, equity is an instrument that's more suited to like big reward potential, and debt is an instrument more suited to risk, so mitigating risk and repayments. And so when we put those together, we think that the bias exists we hypothesize, so it's not proven, this is all just still research, but we hypothesize that there exists a bias towards women-led businesses being more risky. And so now it's the next step is saying, okay, now that we have these insights, what can we do with that insight in terms of the way that accelerators and seed funds and early stage investors or intermediaries that support early stage investment can take creative steps to consider the fact that women are perceived as more risky, and what are some things that we can do in order to mitigate that bias or to change behaviors of those that are viewing the businesses as more risky. So it's a lot to process, honestly, but that's like our initial findings so far.
Rachel, and maybe it's also good to point out that Village Capital as an organization has always been sort of at the forefront of, I don't know, I guess democratizing entrepreneurship. That's the right way to put it. And that I think it's also very interesting that you did away with sort of entrepreneur pitches a long time ago, right? And I think also because there was this bias against sort of female pitches and male pitches, etc.
100%, 100%.
Tsunami, so you know, being in rainy Lagos today, do you sort of recognize what Rachel is saying? Does it feel that global study also sort of represents the situation on the ground in Nigeria? I think you want to unmute yourself.
So what Rachel, much what the research is typical of what is happening. There is a bias, and especially during the pitch events, women have the confidence issues, and so it's she said.
And was it also a reason for you to start the organization that you're running right now?
Yes, so I've been in investment banking and private equity about 10 years now, and I saw that it was always that were coming through, and that actually pushed me to sit down back and say, okay, what can we do? How can we get more women as investors? Because the men are the ones in a lot of those VC firms, and the investor bias for women is pretty much ingrained in all of them.
Thank you. Pauline, your thoughts and comments on sort of the main challenge that we're trying to address.
I totally agree, because so my experience also working with African innovators, which I have done for about 8 years, exactly the same problem we saw. And the question we start asking ourselves, now that we know the problem, how can we, tackle it? And one of the area we're looking at, how do we address those perceived risks? Because at the end of the day, investors will not write a check when they think their money is going to be lost. So we cannot dismiss their concern, actually work towards showing them that actually those risks are perceived. One, by showing the success cases, whereby you show how investing in a woman actually you achieve not just financial return, but also other return, including social and environmental. And those things have been proven. And the second part, I think, is also, again, Tsunami just said, getting local investors. Because, Africans investing in Africans, we're not going to, overemphasize those risks that we know they're not there, right? And the women investing in women, we're not going to have bias because we know what the bias is at. So perhaps that's the angle I wanted just to add from the discussion.
A follow-up question to that point. If you can just mute yourself, Pauline. Thank you. A follow-up question. So is it, do you think it's, should the energy go to sort of reduce investor bias with current investors, or should it go to cultivating a new set of investors who have the right programming? Where do you start? Who wants to answer? Who wants to take the question? I see that Rachel cannot wait. There we go.
As usual. I think it's a combination of both. I think Pauline's point about building more locally led investment funds, more women-led investment funds will be like a critical part of reducing the bias, because there's just more experience in local context and therefore seeing less risk, you know? And then it is also about changing the mindset of some of the institutional players, just because that's where a lot of the capital is. So I think we're going to need to do both. Is the short answer. But one of the things that we've been kind of debating is, you know, how much of it is about changing the system and how much of it is about changing the seeker, so the actual entrepreneur. And our belief is that we really do need to change the system, and it's not about asking women to behave differently, or, you know, and so how do we approach it from that perspective always, which is how do we incentivize the system to behave differently, which is got multiple layers to it, but it could be different financial instruments, it could be how deals are structured, it could be how we recruit, it could be how the programs are structured. And one thing I forgot to mention in the initial part of our findings was actually we found that initial findings is that women are more efficient with capital. So if you give a woman $1 to invest in her business, the return that she'll get per dollar is actually a more efficient use of capital. So that's also an interesting perspective, because when it comes to risk, being efficient is actually risk reduction.
Like a perfect tweet. So just also for the audience, please, you're very welcome to make comments, ask questions, and we'll try as best as possible to integrate those into the conversation. So thank you, Rachel, for those comments. So the question, and also for those examples, because it makes it much more tangible, obviously. But it's still a bit of a question in terms of, you know, I mean, where to start? What is like the first thing, or you know, how do you sort of enable that change? Is it about, do we know exactly what needs to happen, so it's just a matter of doing it, or is it still a discussion also about creating that vision, what the future could look like? I mean, how do we get from A to B here? Pauline, Tsunami, do you want to take the question?
Let me question. So first, it's a combination of both change from the system, existing PE funds, and also working on the female founders. So how to get from A to B? Say we start on both. First of all, the female founders have to start working on themselves. They have to start practicing, especially during for pitching events. They have to use their strengths to our advantage. So we use our strengths, we work within our communities, we grow network. For the system, which is the VC funds, I know talked about financial instruments, maybe working with more debt or quasi-debt like instruments, or maybe the revenue model. And I'm very cautious about changing investor behavior, because these investors have been for years, and change behaviors for people that have done the same thing over 15, 30 years, have made money over time. So those are my thoughts. Pauline, do you have anything to add?
One thing I think we need to keep in mind, at the end of the day, investors want return on the investment. So they will go where they think they have a minimum risk, they have high return. And we know that when it comes to African context, there was a lot of perception of reality. So I think where we have to start by again showcasing that this is not true. By showing, like, I think many people now are showing how many people raise a capital, how the company has grown. I think we need to amplify those stories, because we don't want investors to come in as a charity. This is not a charity, it's a business, right? So, and what I have seen again in my experience running Innovation Prize for Africa was when investors smelled the money and they felt like the risk are not there, they just rushed. So we have had situations where innovators were the one chasing investors, and when we positioned the winner of the prize, And we showed that we validated the innovation. We showed that this is a global needed solution. Now, actually, Noveta was in position to negotiate and say, okay, no, I want this investor, I don't want this investor. And I think that's where we need to really to play. How do we position and within the existing ecosystem, incubators, accelerators work together in a way that we're not appealing to investors and say, oh, come and invest in us, we need your money. No, it should get like, come invest in us because we're going to make you money. And if we can change that narrative, I think, by example, a lot of investors will come. And if you have seen today, there are quite a lot of investors wanting to invest in Africa. And the challenge is most of them, because of the risk, they just want to wait and invest $1 million, 10 million. They say they can't find deals. So, and now you have, ABN, you're doing this, the green techs of the institution are actually working to show that there's a way to de-risk companies and the low investor to make money. And I think that's where the focus should really be, from my perspective.
Good, thank you. So is it fair to say that there's still a lot of talk and too little action? And maybe to follow up on that, Pauline, maybe you want to briefly sort of walk us through the thinking about why you launched a new initiative. What is the problem you're trying to address, and how is it going to work?
So of course there are baby steps, right? Again, when it comes to Africa, people have an idea of Africa is about. Some people don't even try to understand there's 55 countries or 54 countries, depending on your political standing. So we have a lot of work to do, right? To actually educate people from the fact that Africa is not a country, which is fine in a sense, because it's not a country, to actually saying, okay, Africa has a lot of opportunities for you. And I think, again, from the baby step is also, again, saying, okay, let's work together, right? There's so many, maybe not so many, but there's quite a good catalyst, in terms of promoting investment in Africa already existing. I've mentioned already few. And the reason why I decided to create Share Equity, so for those who haven't heard, basically we just launched this initiative called Share Equity. And what Share Equity does is really provide what I call smart investment to African female entrepreneurs. And what I mean by smart is to also to understand some of the reasons why investors don't invest in Africa. It's again because of the risk they perceive they're there. So by providing smart money, we provide the cash, but also we provide the venture building support, really like the very well structured technical support to make sure that we can help you address all those other risks that people say, okay, we're not coming here because you have risk. And the third part we provide is really access to high value network. And the reason why the high value network is needed because we're interested actually in supporting potential scalable businesses. And to scale, you need a network, and you need the right network. So it's not about talking to 100 people, it's about talking to the right 5 people. So we want to capitalize on the network. We have the partners we have to say that if we invest in you as a female business woman, a female African business woman, we actually build an ecosystem around you so that you can worry about building your business. And by the way, by smart money also we mean the whole ecosystem we want to build even for follow-up investment. And for me, the reason I did this, first of all, wanting to focus on the seed capital was the frustration, like many of us African women who believe in African potential to solve its own problems and actually solve the global problems, was that everywhere you go and you give them a good example, they think it's an exception. And I'm like, no, this is not an exception. This is just one example. And the reason why they think it's an exception because we don't see many companies grow. We have a lot of incubation, acceleration, but we don't see many companies growing. And those who are growing are few because there's no one actually building a pipeline that continues to increase the one that can grow. So what Sharequity vision is about, it's saying, okay, let's provide seed capital, build an ecosystem around you, and then also work with the follow-up investors so we can actually invest for the growth, not just invest to end there. So I can go on and on. I guess I will stop there, and if there's a follow-up question. But we are excited, and I already, as we speak, we actually signed the first deal within less than 2 months, and we just concluded also an agreement with a second company, just to tell you how people who have a good business are waiting for money. And by the way, those companies that we signed a deal with, some of them are actually a bit advanced, but they're struggling because of COVID as well, because other investors don't want to come in right now. They're waiting for quote-unquote situation to get better. What running a business and your investors are saying, oh, wait, do you fire everyone? We know how it's hard to hire a team. So that's also why we wanted to rush in a sense and get this fund running, because we realize this COVID is a very critical for survival for some of those businesses.
So much. And I hear you say we are open for business, right? So if there's entrepreneurs in the audience, people can reach out to you during networking sessions. I take it as a yes, right? Great. Okay. So just to come back to the point on this not being exceptions, the need to building trust by showing that things are possible. I mean, Rachel, the organization you work with, Village Capital, has a fund. You've been investing in promising entrepreneurs, both male and female, across the globe, but also very much across the African continent. Are you able to, are there successes that you can speak about? Is there something that you can sort of, help sort of make the conversation more tangible, and give us some great stories about entrepreneurs you've been working with the past years?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think one thing that we're definitely revisiting is, so for the past 10 years or the past 8 years that we've been investing out of a fund in San Francisco. So it was a global fund, a fund based in San Francisco to invest globally. And one of the things, to reinforce what Tsunami and Pauline have been saying, one of the things that we found, which is why we're now launching a family of funds strategy, is that you do need regional specific vehicles, and they need to be suited to the environment in which they're investing. And there were limitations to investing globally from a fund based out of San Francisco. But for the African investments that we've made 15. We've had one exit, which was like vanilla debt, but we have had a lot of success stories. I know for myself, when I joined the Nairobi office in Africa in 2016, in the ecosystem, there still wasn't a lot of understanding of like, what's a seed round, what's a Series A, what's a Series B, like what are the typical numbers that we should be looking for. And by the time I left in 2019, there was a company raising like $1 million seed rounds every couple of months. So at least what I saw was like very encouraging in terms of, here are the standard round values, and here's like more or less what KPIs should start looking like, which was very much like not available in terms of data when I first arrived. So some of our success stories, we have PiggyVest in Nigeria, YouVerify in Nigeria, Pago Energy based out of Nairobi, Future Pump. So yeah, there's definitely a few in there. We learned as we went. The investments that we made when we first started obviously weren't as successful as the ones that we have made later, as we get better at building pipeline, as our programs got better, as we got better at supporting businesses, learning and growing. As we built a regional office, which made a huge impact on the quality of support. So yeah, I think we can say with confidence that there is definitely opportunities there, and companies that have been peer selected for investment have gone on to perform at the same level as companies that are coming in and raising money and performing. So yeah, I think to answer your question, David, we're confident that there is an opportunity, and that with the right support, and to Pauline's point, it's not just giving money and walking away. You know, it's providing an ecosystem surrounding the entrepreneur. And I'm really sort of pushing back on the traditional fund models of 220, where you have such a small management fee that you can't afford to do portfolio support. Like, it's just not going to work in environments that are challenging for entrepreneurs. And as an investor, we have a responsibility to provide additional technical assistance that is cognizant of the challenges. And no single, to Pauline's point again, like no single entity, intermediary, organization is going to do this alone. And so we need to collaborate with each other, and effective collaboration really depends on people being specific about where they're intervening, at what stage of growth for a startup, where can they add value, and then finding partners that are offering value in different ways in order to build that ecosystem around the entrepreneur to help them succeed. So I think success really depends on us being specific and transparent about where we act, and also being open to collaborate with other investors or accelerators, incubators, to build that pipeline and to create that ecosystem around the entrepreneurs to enable them to succeed. But without sufficient portfolio support, it's very challenging for entrepreneurs. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we've learned. And as we go into defining what an Africa vehicle might look like for Village Capital, that is a big thing that we're thinking about, is what's the role of technical assistance? What's the role of shared services? How do we build venture building more than rather just investing and, ad hoc portfolio support?
And I think you raise a number of very important points in terms of being intentional, and I mean, like, wording is important, right? And understanding where you fit in, let's say, the growth journey of an entrepreneur. Also understanding what you maybe cannot do or where you cannot add value, and then seeking those collaborations where other partners could possibly do a better role. Question that came up in from the audience, Sanami, maybe you want to take this one. So this is about, the question is, what are some of the key performing indicators that will make a venture successful for funding? So if you could sort of put on your investor hat for a second and take the audience through that question, and then I don't know if there's a male female component to that, but as an investor, what do you need to see with an entrepreneur, to consider making an investment?
Okay. Thank you, David. Usually we look at a couple of, I will just run through the high level thing. I will now narrow down on the one that is important for us. That revenue, but usually I always tell female founders that revenue growth is more important. User traction, when you don't have any revenue. So user traction is a good number out. You can always up from your pre-orders, your users. Then one that most VC investors focus more is the unit economics, and it just says on a unit basis, how much do you make? I don't need much per product. This is just two components: customer lifetime and customer cost. And for it to scale, I know that we have to communicate to investors, and we women founders have to make sure that we communicate that properly. We need to show that our customer lifetime value is greater than the cost of acquiring a new customer. So say you spend $10 in acquiring a customer, and over that customer has generated $20. So that means that means you have $10 as a number that you can use to show that skill. So those are the metrics that are most important to us: revenue growth, user traction, and unit economics. Over to you, David.
So we have a couple of minutes left on the panel. I have one question would be, if there are ladies or people in the audience that would like to become investors, how would they go about it? Are there how do you invest into a company, a startup across the continent? And then let's take that question first. We'll take another one later. I don't know who wants to take the question.
So do you want me to take that question first? Pauline, Pauline,
Sure.
are you there? Okay. So we at Growvest, we are actually, what we do is a micro investing, because that women don't have that initial lump sum capital to start investing. So pretty much we do micro investing where we on the monthly basis put our funds together and we invest. And so look, if people become investors, and especially women, female investors, look for groups where you can because we all know we're all women, that initial capital to start off as an investor is not yet at that point. And so you need to get that habit going before you now fully as a solo. Pauline, is she there?
So share equity actually can help you with that, because we take investors, individual investors, but the minimum is $50K US to become an investor into share equity. However, you can also come as a group, like you could put money together and come as a group and have one person representing you. So that's one option via share equity. There are different also group of angel investors in the countries. Maybe I think David can speak to that better than I do. And so what they do, they will identify deals and they will syndicate, money so they can be able to invest together. So depending on which country where you are, you can tell us. We can either hook you up with the angel investor in the country, or again consider share equity. Or if the angel investors don't exist, I'm sure A-Bunny can also support you create one in your country. So, David?
Sanami, just a quick follow-up question. When you talk about micro investing, what does that mean? What does that translate into?
Let's use Pauline's example. So you need $50,000 to join HAP. And what we found out that women, that long money at a go, we've not created that muscle, investing muscle yet. So is that we encourage you to save micro bits, and we now use that micro bits to now invest. So say you save $10,000 USD every month, and you can create that muscle so that at the end of maybe 6, you now have 60,000 where you can invest in the business.
Are you for now looking at Nigeria as a market, or could this apply? Are you open for business for across the continent or globally?
So we're focused on Nigerian market. We're a digital company. We saw a lot of people in the UK, a lot of female Nigerians in the UK coming on board, and so it's been an interesting experience. So it's across to Nigeria, but we've seen some across the continent coming.
Rachel, any comments from your side in terms of? I mean, you spend a lot of time on the continent right now. You're in the UK. In terms of people who want to become involved in this space, right? I mean, how does it work? How do you get started, if you will?
I think it's knowing what you bring to the table. Like, what is the value that you're offering beyond capital? So do you have experience with go-to-market? Do you have experience building products? Like, what is the additional value that you bring? Because this isn't just about giving money. This is about growing a business with an entrepreneur and believing in that entrepreneur and going on the journey with them. And so it isn't just, it's finding a business that best aligns with where you can add value. I'd say that that's my biggest piece of advice.
And also, again, a very valid comment, because obviously this conversation is focused maybe too much on the money component. But I think, as Rachel pointed out, there's much more, let's say, value that can be created also via mentorship, by making your network available, by enabling partnerships, by pointing entrepreneurs in the right direction, etc. So thanks again for pointing it out. We have 3 minutes left, so I'm just looking at the audience. This is the time if you still wanted to make a comment or ask a question to the panel. I'm just seeing if there's any sort of remaining questions that I've missed in the chat box. If in case I missed any questions, then my apologies. So we need to start wrapping up. Obviously, there's much more to discuss. There's always time is too short for these kind of conversations. Both Rachel and Pauline, Sanami, and myself, we will be available for networking sessions. So if there's any questions, please find us in the different networking rooms, or or reach out to us in other ways. I want to thank everyone for joining this panel. I hope it was insightful. I hope it helps a little bit. Any last parting words, Sanami, Pauline, Rachel? Anything you want to share with the audience? Any last sort of words of wisdom?
I want to say thank you for including me in this conversation, and refer people to our report that we have done with the IFC on the gender financing gap. My last thoughts are that from a different IFC-led report, that female partners invest twice as much in female-led businesses than male partners, and the gender balanced teams have higher valuation increases. So if you're leading a fund, if you're investing capital and you don't have women on your team making investment decisions, then you're missing a trick. And everybody has biases, and it's just about like an honest self-examination without judgment to ensure that you are distributing power and decision-making to the people who are most representative of the type of organizations that you want to invest in. So that's my final thoughts on that one. And thank you again for including me in the conversation.
Pauline?
Just to repeat how it's important that we all work together, because at the end of the day, we want to grow businesses, and the businesses, thrive in ecosystems. So let's work together, join hands. And secondly, as Rachel just mentioned, it's investing in a woman is not a charity. It's actually a very good business. So there's quite a lot of research shown. And also, by the way, have shown also, there are many women entrepreneurs in Africa. So I would like to invite people to check out SheEquity, so www.sheequity.com, and get in touch if you would like to invest or you would like to be a part of the network. And most importantly, I think it's important also those with big amount of money to invest in funds that are actually run by the local people, because it's a win-win. So the risk that you see, you perceived, the people on the ground know how to address them, they will make you money. So just again, repeating that investing in African female-led businesses, it's a good business, and let's do it together. Thank you.
So I completely agree with everything Rachel and Pauline has said. I actually think that investing in women and women-run business is actually the way to. Just the last week, I also want to talk about female founders. Also, make sure that they support other founders coming up. There has one pitch event. Bigiwa of LifeBank did that. She won the Jack Ma event, and she reached out to other female founders to at least learn and practice how to those type of events. So do back if you have gotten to the top. All I'm saying. Thank you.
Again, to the audience, thank you for joining us. And then thanks to my wonderful panel. Thank you, Rachel, Pauline, Sanami. Thank you for making and share some of your wisdom. And then to everyone else, thanks again for joining. Have a great 2 days. Thanks for Ani and her team for putting this together. Thank you so much, and take care, everyone.
David, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.